Hello class, welcome to today's lesson, which is topic 1.3, measurement and physical quantity, and topic 1.4, international system of weights and measures. So let's talk about these two topics, guys. They are quite easy to understand, I believe. So let's talk first about 1.3, which is measurement and physical quantity. Let's discuss these ideas. So first of all, what is a quantity? When we pronounce this word quantity, what do we mean by it? Okay, let's see. I'm gonna write in here first three words. I'm gonna write friendliness. I'm gonna write, let's say, beauty, and I'm gonna write discipline. And I'm gonna ask from you whether you think these are quantities or not. Friendliness, beauty, discipline. For example, let's take the first one, friendliness. Suppose that you have a couple of friends. I'm gonna call this one friend one, and I'm gonna call this one friend two. I mean, you may have many more friends, but let's suppose that we have only these two to talk about. And you have known this guy for so many years. You know, this is probably your best friend. You know, you have known him since kindergarten. I don't know, whatever. You have had a lot of experiences with him, etc. And this other guy in here, friend two, you just met him like a month ago or something. So you may say that this is your best friend and this is not your best friend. So you are already assigning this person in particular, you're assigning more of a certain quantity that we may call friendliness or friendship. You have more of that to him than to him. You give more of that quantity to him than to him. You see the idea? This one has much more of that quantity than this other person. Okay, so maybe we're talking about the idea that friendliness is a quantity because it's something that can either go up or go down. Some people have more of it with respect to you, and some people have less with respect to you. You see how it works? So friendliness or friendship, I don't know what could be the better word, is we may think of that as a quantity. Now, what about beauty? For example, if I showed you two paintings, one of which is painted by Leonardo da Vinci, let's call this one Leonardo da Vinci, and of course, I'm not gonna draw anything in there. And this other one is something made by, I don't know, a 2-year old, and it's just scribblings. So we have two paintings. And if I ask a lot of people which of these they think is more beautiful, probably we expect that I don't know, 90% or 95% or even more people decide upon this one to be the more beautiful of these two paintings. So beauty is a quantity because it's a property of an object that can either go up and have more of it, in this case this painting, or have less of such a property, in this case beauty. So beauty is, we can think of it also as a quantity. What about discipline? Again, you have several friends, and you may be thinking already that one of them has much more of this quantity. Let's talk about she now. She is much more disciplined than all your other friends. So discipline may be thought of as a quantity because some people have more of that and some people have less of that. Fine. So all of these three things can be thought of as quantities. What is the problem with all of these things? Listen, the problem with these guys, with this type of quantities, is that they are vague. They are vague. They are subjective to a certain extent. Subjective. Okay. What does that mean? It means the following: that For example, let's look at the example of the beauty thing. Some people may actually think that this is much more beautiful than this one. I don't know, right? And you cannot actually discuss that idea. You cannot actually counter their idea. Why not? Because there is no way in which you can actually measure beauty in an objective way. You cannot say that this frame or this painting has 100 units of beauty and this one has 20 units of beauty. You cannot do that. You cannot measure beauty. That's the word. You cannot measure. And from the moment you realize that you cannot measure a property, then even though we may think of them as quantities, they're not so strong, they're not so objective. The same with discipline. Even though you may say that this person is much more disciplined than these other two guys, if I ask you, okay, how do you know that? How can you measure the level of discipline a person has? And you run into problems because it's difficult. It's difficult to actually measure such a thing. The same with friendliness, and the same with a lot of other stuff. So even though all of these things may be thought of as quantities, they're not objective and they cannot be measured, and that's a very difficult problem. Now, let's contrast this idea with the following idea, the concept behind a physical quantity. Now, this type of quantities are better in a sense, okay? They are much more better or much more manageable. Manageable. I think this is how you write it down. Manageable. What do I mean by this? A physical quantity is just a quantity like the previous ones. It's something, it's a property of an object that can either have more, that can be either more or less. That's the idea behind a quantity, something that can change and be either more or less. But the thing with physical quantities is that you can actually measure them. For example, suppose you have a whiteboard on a classroom and you want to measure its length, which is this part, and its width, which is this part. So what do? It's very easy, right? Well, all you have to do is you take a ruler and then you start to measure from this extreme to the other extreme of the whiteboard, and then you can come up with a measurement. Let's say 1.78 meters. So this is a measurement. And the moment you can actually measure a quantity, therefore we say that this quantity is a physical quantity. A physical quantity is basically like a quantity that can actually be measured with a number and a unit. And the same goes for width. All you have to do is measure from this extreme to this other extreme, and then you come up with a certain number, let's say 0.75, and a unit, which is meters in this case, and therefore length, which is this, we are measuring length in here. Length is a physical quantity. Why? Because length can be measured, objectively. If I actually put 100 people to measure the length of this part of the whiteboard and the length of this part, all those 100 people are gonna come with the basically the same two numbers, 1.78, 0.75. So length can be measured, and it is an objective measurement. All people that know how to handle a ruler will come out with these two measurements. That's a physical quantity. We say that length is a physical quantity. What other example can I give you? I hope you have a scale at home. You know, a scale is a device in which you step on and they tell you how much you weigh, like I don't know, 60 kilograms or something. So you're gonna step up on this thing, and this object, this instrument, will tell you a number in a unit, and what this thing is measuring is your mass, right? So in this case, uh, mass can be measured, the mass of anything actually, and therefore mass is a physical quantity. Mass is a physical quantity. Why? Because it's a property of an object that can either be more or less, and it's physical because we can actually measure it. So that's the whole idea, guys, behind physical quantity. If you have a quantity and you can measure it with an instrument, in this case a ruler to measure length, in this case a scale to measure mass, um, if you want to measure volume, what do you use? You use some sort of a flask, right? For example, if you put water on a vase, on a glass or something, and this glass is graduated in millimeters, 1 millimeter, 2 milliliters, sorry, 1 milliliter, 2 milliliters, etc., and you pour water inside, you can measure the volume of the water. So therefore, the volume of objects is a physical quantity. Why? Because we can measure it. Because we can measure it. That's the whole idea, measurement. And that is the difference, guys, between uh, concepts which are just quantities, like I told you, friendship and beauty and discipline and love, etc., and physical quantity, which is something much more objective and something that you can actually measure with a device. Okay, so I've said this word a lot, measure, measure, measure. So what does it mean to measure a quantity? Well, we measure a property of an object when we assign a numerical value and a unit to it. So going back to the same example I gave you, if you have a whiteboard and if you measure the length of this side, in order to have a proper measurement of this length, what you have to give me in the end of this process is a number or a value, a numerical value, and some unit. Okay, if I tell you, please, Carlos, measure the length from one extreme to the other of the base of the whiteboard. Carlos has to give me a numerical value and a unit. If you miss any one of these things, you're wrong. For example, if I ask some other person to measure this other length, and this other person just tells me, it's 0.75, teacher. All of these measures 0.75. That is not a proper measurement. Just a numerical value is not a proper measurement because I can ask him, I can go like, well, what are you talking about? 0.75 meters or 0.75 centimeters or 0.75 kilometers. You see, you have to be specific. You have to give me a numerical value and a unit in order for this measurement to be correct. Otherwise, it's not a measurement. So that's what does it mean. That's what it means to measure, guys. It's me, uh, assign that, hence this word, assign a numerical value and a unit to a property of an object. That's what we mean by measurement. And people forget quite a lot about the unit. They really don't forget about the value, but they always forget about the unit. You always have to establish your units. Otherwise, your measurement is completely irrelevant. For example, if I ask you, how much do you weigh? A lot of people say 60, just like that. They just say 60. That is wrong. You have to say 60 kilograms. If you miss the kilograms word, you're wrong. You're technically wrong. Okay, let's continue, guys. Uh, okay, now what is a unit of measurement? So now we know what a measurement is. Now what is a unit? This little word here. What is a unit of measurement? So let's read. A unit of measurement is the defined quantity used as a standard for measuring physical quantities. What does that mean? Well, let's suppose that we're talking about your classroom and you have 35 people in there, 1, 2, up to 35. And let's suppose you want to measure the heights of each of your classmates, the heights, las alturas. So you can do that in various ways. For example, some person may decide to do this, may decide to pick up his pencil, okay, which is a very tiny thing compared with these people, right? I mean, I'm not drawing at scale. And this person can decide upon this pencil as the unit of measurement. What does that mean? That this is my standard, that when I go about the process of measuring the height of the people, I'm gonna put the pencil as many times as possible, like up until the head, like one pencil, two pencils, three pencils, four pencils, etc., etc. And then I'm gonna express the height of this particular person in units of pencils. I would have to say this person has a height of, no, let's say 25 pencils. So 25 is my numerical value, and pencil is my unit of measurement, because that's the standard that I'm using to measure the height of this person. And the same for the others. This person will be 27 pencils of height. This other person may be 26.5 pencils, etc. So in this case, pencil is my unit of measurement. And people have been inventing units of measurement since antiquity. Okay, so now that you know what a unit of measurement is, and now that you know that you can use whatever stuff you want, pencil or a notebook or anything, it doesn't matter. The best idea is to actually define units of measurement which are more, let's say, more precise than a pencil. Okay, nobody's gonna use a pencil as a unit of measurement. That's not a good idea because the pencil can break, etc. So why not better to have a something that cannot break? You see what I mean? Like a rod of metal. If we actually use a rod, una vara of metal as a unit of measurement for length, that's gonna be much better because this bar cannot break because it's made of metal. So you see the idea. We need units of measurement which are more precise and much more reliable. That is the idea. Fine. So what systems of units do we have? We have two systems. Basically, there are maybe a couple of more, but nobody uses those other two. The ones that are used in the world nowadays is the International System of Units, known as the SI, International System, which is also known as the metric system. And as you may know, all of those units are these ones. Look, we have in here the quantities. Quantity length. Is this a physical quantity? Yes, because we can measure it. What is the unit in which we measure length? It's the meter. The meter. And the symbol for the unit is an M. Try to respect the symbology. A lot of people write, I don't know, MT for meter. So they write 5 meters, or they write 5 MTS. And in their minds, they're thinking about meters, but this is not the way in which it's written. You have to respect the symbology in science. So we say 5 meters. That's what we say. Okay, so what about mass? Is mass a physical quantity? Yes, because we can measure it with a scale. What is the unit in which we measure mass? It's the kilogram. And the symbol for kilogram is kg. And the same for all the other. Time. Can we measure time? Yes, with a clock. And that's an objective measurement. What is the unit in which we measure time? The official unit is the second, not the hour or the minute. It's the second. This is the official unit. And the symbol is an S. Once again, some people write sec for seconds. No, wrong. You just write an S and that's it. You don't write sec. And then we have other more complicated quantities like electric current, thermodynamic temperature, amount of substance, and luminous intensity. So just know that there are other quantities. We're not going to use them that much or at all in this course. So the ones I care about a lot for you to understand are these three. These three are important for us in the course, and understand their units, and please understand that the symbol are these ones and not any other type of symbols. So don't make up symbology just because you think it's correct. Okay, so this is the International System of Units. And the other system of units that some people use in the world, and by some people I mean the United States basically, is the English system, which is, as you may know by now, For length, it's the inch, la pulgada, the foot, el pie, the yard, the mile, etc. For volume, we have gallon, as in gallons of gasoline, the ounce, etc. For weight, we have pounds, tons, and ounces again. So just we're gonna use this system every now and then, because you need to understand that it's important to know it at least a little bit. Why? Because a lot of stuff comes in these units. Many stuff that is produced in the United States will come with these units, because this is the system that the United States uses. And since the United States is a very important country in the world of commerce, then it's important to know this whole all of this system. Okay, I'm gonna stop it right there, because I want to continue with you, asking questions and maybe asking you some questions. And so let's go back to the class, guys.